Okay, it's 6 a.m. I'm starting this video now because for a brief second the cats were in view, but now wandering off. It's been a pretty... this week's been a lot. Good or bad, a bit of both. But it's all kind of happening now because we've released our demo and the next fest starts next week. And we're going to be in the PC Gaming Show on Sunday with a new trailer. And here we go. Here we go, Jesse. Hi. You want to drink my water? You do have your own water. It has been a very busy time. There's been some stressful stuff. I'm not going to go into details. Although someday I'd like to write an itemized list of all the fucking things that have, all the fires I've had to put out. But the way I'll put it is, most of the time I have a very blessed existence career-wise because I'm in charge of my company and I get to make the game I want to make, and that takes a really long time. We just take a really long time because we have money from the previous games. And there's something a little bit sort of almost childish about it. Just like, I just get to do what I want. Lately, I've never felt more like a CEO or a, whatever you want to call it, director. I've never felt more like I'm running a company because it is just like, oh God, I've got to be, today I've just got to be this guy, today I've just got to be that guy, today I've just got to be this guy. And it's not just the hat switching, it's the hats wearing are horrible hats. They're like, I don't want to be this guy, I've just got to be this guy right now. But yeah, and it just never more keenly felt the kind of like buck stops with you part of it, where there's all these, because so much of the work is just like, this is nobody's job, or it just falls between the cracks, or we don't have anyone for this, or I gotta do it. I gotta do it really fast. And in some cases, I mean, even this, I guess it started a little while ago because the trailer that we're showing in the PC Gaming Show, I made it, and with help from the team, of course. But I was the video editor on it, and I originally was looking for a video editor to do it for us. Last time we used Derek Liu, and in the end, as this concept developed for this trailer, I won't go into specifics because we haven't shown it yet, but I realised this is actually, if it is someone external doing it, it's going to be so much back and forth that it's probably going to take almost as much time as me just doing it in the first place. And hiring and managing people are things that I'm not especially good at, and hiring especially is very stressful and time consuming. And I was like, I would rather, even if it takes 50% longer for me to do it myself, I'd rather do 50% more creative work than the standard amount of managerial work, which is just, I'm already maxed out on. I'm just like, that I'm already managing as much as I possibly can. And one of, this is, managing too much is stressful for me and fucks up my mood if I'm not doing real development work. Not that managers aren't real developers, but I mean hands-on changing the game work. That is what lifts my mood. I need a bit of that going on, or I start to lose it. But also, more importantly, managing is not a job. Oh my God, Beth. There is, I can't show it because it's too far away, but a box that the litter came in has a lot of brown paper in it, and she's knocked that over and is finding it, which is, I love it, love that for her, but it is the noisiest paper in the world. I hope it's not drowning me out. What was I saying? Oh yeah, managing, you also can't, you can't phone it in, you can't fuck it up, you can't, because it's other people that suffer when you do that as well as yourself. So that's why I was keen not to take on any extra managing. But again, just I've made videos before. I've made most of our trailers, but usually they're trailers. I just hit record for 10 minutes and just start waffling. Whereas this one has to be exactly 3 minutes. In fact, the reason we hired Derek last time was that we needed a very tight, snappy trailer for the PC Gaming Show, and that is exactly what we need this time. This time I tried to do it myself. And I learned a lot about snappy editing. I learned a lot about, because that's just a whole different discipline, to make something that's actually, is pacey. And I did my I edited it as snappily as possible, and I showed it to people, and like, this seems to be really slow and sluggish. And I'm like, really? Oh, okay. And then learned, if you're trying to show an interaction, you've got to cut right to the bone. Like, I was already focusing on just the interaction, right? But I was showing the whole interaction from start of the animation to the finish of the outcome of the animation. And everyone's like, you can't even do that. That's too slow. It's just got to be like the actual moment something hits and then just cut away immediately. It's crazy. Anyway, that's one of the more fun hats I got to wear lately. But I'm going to move on from the stressful stuff and talk about the upside, which has been that the reception to the demo has been amazing. On day one, we launched at 10 a.m, so we sort of had a full day of that demo being out, and we pre-sent it to press and streamers and stuff. So we're expecting day one to be, a spike. When you look at it like a graph of wish list, for example, and you're looking at the last few months, when you do a newsworthy thing for the first time in a while, what you want to see on the graph is the L shape, which is just like the spike from the new wish lists is so large that everything that's happened in the last 3 months just looks like a horizontal line. There's no detail. And we didn't quite get that because actually, a few reasons. One is just that we recently announced that I will be streaming with hbomberguy during the next fest, the demo. That was a news story, and that got some traffic, so that's nice. We got some wishes out of that. And then on day one, all told, we had 874 wishes that day, which is good. That was decent. I have to admit, I was hoping for a little bit more, because it's the first playable thing. We just didn't know what to expect, really. Didn't know what the number would be, but it didn't do the L-shaped thing, because I could still see I could still see the hbomberguy spike, and I could still see the kind of daily, I guess it spikes on the weekends or something, I don't know. But the usual churn was not invisible, so it's not quite the kind of oh my god, success that you want. But my hope was, the hbomberguy spike dropped off pretty sharp because it was just a news story. There was nothing to do about it. It was just that's news. Once you've heard the news is over. Whereas the demo comes out, people are playing the demo, they're saying, okay, only 800, but hopefully it will kind of slowly trail off rather than suddenly trail off. And then also, all of this is kind of secondary because we're in the PC Gaming Show. When we were in that 2 years ago, that was our biggest wishlist spike ever by far. We're expecting that to be our biggest wishlist spike, for the next fest. Not launch day. When I checked wish lists yesterday, which actually the days are complicated. When I checked the wish list for day two, I was hoping it hadn't trailed too much. So 860, I think, the first day. Second day, 5,300. That did make the L shape. Now all the other stuff is gone. It's just a big old spike, which is incredible. I think, I guess it just takes a little while for a demo to kind of get traction. Not that long, a day. But just, because we'd preceded it, we sent it out to people ahead of time, I was thinking everything was going to go live all at once, and so everything we got on day one, I figured that was it, that was all we're going to get. But it's been much more of a kind of organic kind of process, and seeing, people sort of coming to it on their own steam and yelling about it on their own steam, and it's much less of a sort of designed press hit than a sort of more organic thing of just people naturally feeling inclined to yell about it. Jerry from Penny Arcade just tweeted yesterday that it was the funniest game played all year, which was out of the blue and amazing. I don't believe we sent it to them. None of that is surprising. I'm acting like I'm confused. How did he play it? I know it's a public demo. I didn't expect no one else to play it except the people we sent it to. But I'm just trying to talk about why we got our big spike on day two instead of day one, which is not even that interesting a topic. What is happening at the moment that feels very new and is there's actually several things. There's a lot going on. I can't remember if I mentioned why I'm up at 6 a.m. is because I crashed at 10 last night because I was just completely drained in good and bad ways, like just everything. But one of the nice things that's happening at the moment, which I think it happened a bit with Heat Signature, it happened a lot with Gunpoint, is the best thing, which is seeing people say things about your game that are exactly what you're going for, but you never said that you were going for them necessarily. And in some cases, things you forgot that you'd done about the game, like somebody said that it sort of rips out all of the sort of the boring ritual of tactics games. And I don't think I'm going to go through all the praise because it feels a bit wanky to to sort of repeat it, and also my memory's terrible. That's one of the things that goes when you're stressed and overworked. So I would misremember them anyway. But just that feeling of like somebody, I guess it's feeling seen, right? Like not me, but the game. Like this thing that we've been working on for so long, seeing that all the things we were trying to achieve didn't get lost in translation. They landed for people, and in a way that we didn't expect. Like I say, I had that with Gunpoint a bit. With Gunpoint, I still marvel anytime I look at the review quotes that we've got on Gunpoint's page, because so many of them are just like, almost word for word things I had in my design docs but didn't say about the game, and to have that translate so well was just a miracle, and almost pure luck with, with Gunpoint. I didn't know what I was doing there. Here it's been a lot harder, but it is just as wonderful to hear that. The thing that is new is the user ratings. So we don't have Steam reviews yet because you don't get those for the demo. But we do. I left the survey in that we use for testing, which I don't think I've ever done that before with like a public version of the game. And we always ask people to rate it out of 10. And I will try and recall the numbers here because it tells the story, the emotional journey that I've been on with this. So for quite a long time, I've been feeling pretty good about how well Wizards would be received, because the Act 2 beta, which is half the game, got a better percentage of 9s and 10s than the final beta of Heat Signature. So Heat Signature's last beta was shortly before launch. It was pretty much the full game, so pretty reflective of what people thought of the full game. And the number I always care about, we ask people to rate it out of 10, and what I care about is the number of 9s and 10s. Just group those together, one block, because difference between those is meaningful, but not life or death. I'm never disappointed if someone gave it only a 9, right? 9's fine. Like, we're forgetting 9s. That's incredible. Really, I expect most of my games have been kind of 8 out of 10, like Metacritic average, and I'm happy with that. That's great. Because trying to get like 9s consistently is a fool's game, I think. Because it's not even really about what you're trying to do there is be everyone's favorite game, and I'm not really going for that. What I care about is I want to create excitement. I want people to play our games and be like, and have their mind light up and go, oh shit, I can do this. Oh, and they're buzzing about the possibilities. That's what I love in games, and that's what I want to create for other people. And I'd much rather create that for X people than create a sort of pretty good experience for 10 times that many people. And trying to create that excitement for everyone is a fool's game. Because it's just about trying to have the most broad appeal. Or I don't even know what it is. I don't know how to do it, and I'll probably never do it. But yes, 9s and 10s is what I care about. Last beta of Heat Signature was 30, maybe 32% 9s and 10s, which is, I'm very happy with that because we'd had some betas that were a lot lower. Heat Signature took a while to find itself. And then the Act 2 beta for Wizards, we had 40% 9s and 10s, which I was delighted with. And I was like, shit, it's already better than Heat Signature. I mean, it's not. People are rating it. We never tell people how to rate it. We just like, give it a number out of 10. And assume bugs will be fixed, but don't assume we'll add anything. We don't mention a price or anything like that, so it's all just like gut feel. And so that's useless for like predicting review score or whatever, but you can compare beta to beta. So yeah, I was delighted, and I was thinking, okay, we're on pretty solid ground here. We haven't made like a weird, hard to like thing, because I knew I liked it, and so the thing you're trying to find out is not is it any good, but just like is it bland for people. And then I guess the recent story starts with the demo testing. Demo testing, there were two. So the demo is just the start of the game plus a little bit extra on the end. I tried something nutty for the little bit extra on the end the first time. It was very ambitious. Every time I told someone about it, they're like, either that's ambitious or that won't work, and it didn't work. And then I rethought it. I really wrestled with this because the idea was overly ambitious. It wasn't landing for people. We didn't have time to iterate on it much. I was trying to make a trailer and a demo at the same time. And what most people were saying to me is like, why are you doing an extra thing? Don't do an extra thing. Just show the game. People just want the game. Just give them the start of the game. But we did a little extra conversation in the Gunpoint demo, and people really responded well to it. And so I was determined to do something extra. And even when everyone was telling me not to do anything extra, I was like, nah, sorry, this is this is just like, it just feels like us to do something extra. Like I want that to be our identity. Is always giving you like a little bit more than you expect, something you didn't necessarily know you were going to get. And so I rethought it and I came up with a new idea for how to do an extra bit on the end. Tested much better. It just, I had a question in that survey about like, how did you feel about the extra bit on the end? I put quote marks about extra bit on the end. What I actually mean is that's the only part of what I said that isn't a quote, because I described it. And yeah, it completely transformed the results there from most people, from there being significant issues with it to pretty much everyone liking it. And then I looked at the ratings out of 10, and we had, so 9s and 10s, it was 30 for Gunpoint, 40 for Act 2 Beta, 57 for the demo. 57 9s and 10s? I've never seen that. I can't remember if we... I'm sure we asked the out of 10 question for Gunpoint betas, but I don't think I have the data anymore because I remember trying to find it. I don't think I've found it out, but I'm sure it wasn't 57% 9s and 10s. That's a crazy figure. And of course, loads of caveats, mainly demo, short and sweet, free. It's easy to like a demo, I guess. And partly because that rating was so high, I thought, let's leave the survey in the full thing, because if we're getting a really warped perception because our biggest fans are playing with testers, that's always the case to some extent. But if that's throwing our numbers way off, then I'd like to know that. And also just this is going to be our biggest, it's not a playtest, but if you used it as a playtest, you can have the largest playtest you'll ever have. So let's just leave the survey in and I updated it a little bit because there's certain questions we don't need to ask anymore. Like, does the bit on the end work? Well, I don't care now because it's out. I'm not going to change that. But yeah, the out of 10 question is what I was interested in. And I tweeted about this a bit, so I spoiled the ending of the story for some people. But in fact, okay, I found the numbers because I wouldn't have remembered this. So we had 57% from testers on the demo, and then we released it to the public, and we had people had those people rated too, expecting much less, expecting how much worse is it with the general public who aren't necessarily fans of ours. And we got 58% 9s and 10s, which is, that's not what I expected. That's significantly more. Well, no, it's marginally more. But what is significantly more is, I'll show you the graph, because I did tweet this, but that's a weird graph. There's a dip at 9, and then 10 is the most common rating, which is not true of the testers. And it's 35% 10 out of 10s, which is what? That's more 10 out of 10s than we got 9s and 10s for Heat Signature. It's just absurd. So, I mean, who the fuck knows what's going on? Why is it so good overall? Why isn't the public less kind to us than presumably our biggest fans? I mean, they're not more kind necessarily. Kind is the wrong word to use. But I expected this to be a much harsher rating. Why isn't it harsher? For any level of success overall, why isn't the public harsher than the select few? I mean, and the underscore to all of this really is who the fuck knows? Any data, whatever this data was, I could come up with some explanation for well, it's probably because of this factor. My best guess though specifically the big spike on tens is weird. Like, why is 9 a dip in particular? No great explanation for that. But the only factor I can think of that might help explain this is, with the public finding this demo that's just out there for everybody, we might have more people who've like never heard of the game until today, and they're just like, oh, what's this? And play it, and like, oh, this is cool. So for however many people out there, however many people there are out there who will love this game, ones who've just come to it fresh today are probably more likely to go to 10 rather than 9 if they're in that zone anyway. Whereas people who've been waiting for it for 6.5 years, like, yeah, it's great, really love it. But it doesn't quite get to the 10 out of 10 if you've been like, you know, jonesing to play this for so long. There's only so much it can exceed your expectations, right? I mean, if those people are giving it 9s, then I'm delighted. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of that could explain more 10s. And that was after 77 responses, so not a huge sample set, but enough to start concluding things. And then yesterday, I just wasn't going to look at that graph again. I was like, this is incredible news, best possible news. I'm delighted. Big burst of energy and motivation. Let's never look at this again, because it can only go down from here, right? As it gets broader reach, more people are playing it. We are going to start hitting people who don't like it and all that stuff. And then after 691 responses, I was looking at other feedback in that form. I swear I didn't mean to look at the graph. I was just looking at other responses. I need to know some other data that's useful from there. And then I accidentally glimpsed the graph and I was like, wait, what? Because now the graph looks like this, which is, it's no longer a weird graph. I mean, it's weird in a different way, because that's just 10 is just significantly the most, and just like the closer to 10 you get, the more common the result is. Like, I've never seen a graph that looks like that either. But this one at least doesn't have, like, it's less strange because it's not a weird dip at 9. But what's strange about it is that that's 40% 10s, just 10s. that's more 10s than we've ever had 9s and 10s for the whole game. Well, actually, not quite true for the whole game, but for the Act 2 beta. And with 9s in there as well, like 71% 9s and 10s. What the fuck is going on? That's insane. I mean, this is biased in many ways. In general, we ask people to rate the game when they're finished with it. In the public demo, we don't show you the survey link until you're done with it. It's a short demo, so most people are going to complete it. But of course, if people bounce off it in the middle, the reason there's no 5s and I think it's like 2 5s after 1,000 results at this point. The reason there's so few of those is if you bounced off it, if you really didn't like it, you probably didn't finish the demo. So we're losing a bunch of data there. It isn't a fair test at all, but even so, I mean, even so, but in fact, it keeps going up, like it keeps getting better as more people play it. Something's going on, and yeah, the various statistical biases and stuff and do render this data essentially meaningless. Like, it's not, I wouldn't use this to sort of persuade anybody of anything. But I will say, just for me personally, this is feeling really good, and maybe a career highlight of just, because these out of 10 numbers I've been looking at for decades, and so I know them pretty well, and that the feeling of like really striking gold on that is amazing. You know, these are the phrase that keeps bringing to mind when I look at these is science fiction. If you told me like a month ago, you get numbers like this, I'm like, fuck off, that's not a real number. And it's not a real number because of all the biases, but still, it feels really good. So yeah, there's this feeling of like having our moment in the sun right now. Kind words from strangers, kind words from old friends. All this 6.5 years of work paying off, and just having just that validation of like, you know, sure, we've shown it to testers before, people who've signed up saying, yes, I want to play, not only just like, I want to be on your mailing list and hear about your games, but then also we ask, hey, do you want access to this beta? And they say, yes, I want access to this specific beta. So those people, the fact that it went down with all of them is great. It's not a guarantee at all. But it wasn't total confirmation that yes, the game's on the right track and we're going to be fine. now the demo thing does feel like, yes, we're on the right track. It doesn't prove that people are going to love the full game, of course. The game, has to evolve and change over time, and over the course of the campaign, I mean, it's not going to change. The demo part is not going to change significantly between now and launch. And so there will be stuff in the later game that is not as universally liked as the stuff in the early game. That is already the case in the full game beta. We looked at like the level rating stats, and you can see it really shows which half the game has been tested thoroughly, and then the back half of the game, there's little red blips in people in the ratings of individual levels, and that's what I've been working on. That's what I've been trying to work on for the last month-ish. Hello, Jesse. Hi. And that's been part of the stress, to be honest, is that I have this feedback now. I avoided looking at the feedback for the full game beta for quite a while because I wouldn't have time to work on it, especially when the trailer and the demo had to be done, basically, before I looked at that stuff, because there was no point in having it on my brain while I'm trying to focus on two other urgent, difficult, very different tasks. So once I finished those, I started looking at this. Of course, now the lead up to the launch of the demo and the Next Fest and the live streams and the PC Gaming Show and all the PR around that has been taking up a ton of my time. And in the background, I've been trying to also, I need to actually fix the game, finish the game. I need to act on this feedback. And the urgency is we've got a while to launch. I won't say exactly how long, but what I need to do is at least 2 more rounds of testing before launch, which means testing what? Not testing the current game. I need to fix, then test the fixes, then fix the fixes, then test the fixes and the fixes. And then it has to go out to reviewers and streamers and stuff a month before launch. So you've got a month less than you think, and you've got to fit 2 more rounds of testing into it. And again, I can't say the timescale, but it's it's tight. And it's tight not because there's not time to do the work, but just because I'm doing every other fucking thing. And I wish I would love to be just spending 10 hours a day just working on fucking game stuff. Not least because I enjoy that stuff. It's negative feedback is sometimes a little bit rough, but I'm good with this kind of feedback. We are making a handcrafted, story-driven game. My current feeling is I don't want to make another handcrafted, story-driven game in this way. I don't want to be handcrafting every level. I didn't handcraft every level. We had a level designer, Steve Lee. But just that process of production of every part of this needs to be custom made is wildly time consuming, as indicated by the 6.5 year development time for a game that's going to be 8 to 10 hours long. I don't want to do that again, but the one great thing about it, the best thing about it, is that when you get feedback, you can get incredibly granular feedback and just see exactly which levels people are having issues with, and then I can dig into what they said about them, and I can look at the level again and be like, oh yeah, I see how to fix that, and fix it, and then do another test and see that there'll be a bar here, and there's a 10% negative is kind of concerning. We have a couple of 15s at the moment, which are definitely, there's just straight up some bugs that are causing a lot of this stuff. But when you see that 10% and then you change the level, you test it again, and the 10% goes down to 2%. That's so nice. It just feels like, it's cathartic. It's like you're removing, a disease or something. And then you get to look at this lovely, healthy bar graph afterwards, and just you're laser targeting the problem areas. Whereas in Heat Signature, we couldn't do that because, people's issues would be, they wouldn't be with a specific chunk of content because there was no handcrafted content. It was just I had a bad experience in this way. And it's well, we could change the entire game to try and make that less likely. But who knows what else we break in that process? It's very hard to fine tune that. Yes. So demo ratings, wish lists. Oh yeah, there's another little metric on which we've been had the sun shining on us lately is the Next Fest itself. So it doesn't start till Monday, but there is a way for developers and press to see a preview of the Next Fest page. Essentially, the Next Fest is sort of running in the background, and this isn't accessible to the public, but it's useful for press to get ahead of it, and it's interesting for developers to see where they stand currently. And we were, on day one, we were I think sort of 32nd, I think, in trending. I think we were 30 30-something in either active players or total wish lists. I'm a little bit fuzzy on exactly what the timescale for these things are, because I heard that it was like... Anyway. And we've been slowly rising in that trending category. Trending is the one where we have a chance, I think. And we've been floating towards the top. As we float towards the top, and as you're looking at the big hitters, the ones that are at the top, there's a lot of open world survival games, but there's also like, there's Vampire Therapist was up at number 1 or 2 for a while, which I don't know anything about that game. I don't vouch for it or have any opinion on it, except to say that looking at our game, Tactical Breach was next to Vampire Therapist, is like, boy, we did kind of go for a similar kind of like, what if we put these words together? And then the thing I love is that the number 1 spot has been long occupied by the real juggernaut, Tiny Glade, which is a beautiful little toy for making castles, where you just, it's one of those, very much in the vein of Townscaper, but I think even more delightful and just like gorgeous to look at. And I think a bit more sort of diverse in what you can do with it, because you're making a little glade with a little castle in it, or some other kind of building, and there's just really nice tools for drawing. I haven't tried it yet, but I've been seeing gifs of that game for years, and it's always looked incredible. And it's one of those things that's like amazing, because it's like cute and wholesome, but it's also like a technical masterpiece. Like, I don't know how they're doing what they're doing with it, and it's got that feeling that so many game developers want to or say they're going to achieve, or say they have achieved, which is feeling magical, where like what you're doing is just dragging a mouse, but what's happening is like the building is kind of morphing and adapting around it, and the position of every brick is changing everything. It's gorgeous. I love that that's the Juggernaut. There's also like a few games down, there's Kill Knight in block capitals. And actually, I'm quite excited about that too. That looks good too. I think I was going to make a juxtaposition and say what I'm glad it is not the number 1 spot. I'm glad it's not like FIFA. I'm glad it's not Call of Duty, which I guess it wouldn't be in a Next Fest, because Next Fest is sort of implicitly indie, I think. It's not actually, that's not a requirement or anything. Any game could be in it. But it is always about indies, isn't it? Like, Activision aren't going in for Next Fest, really. I don't know if that's the thing that, if there's a reason for that in particular. But yeah, it's great that those are the big hitters. And what's even more great is that yesterday we were at number 2 below Tiny Glade, and today we're at number 1. Fuck you, Tiny Glade! I remember when Gunpoint came out, suddenly taking a sort of personal grudge against Remember Me, I think, the Don't Nod game, came out the same day as us. I've never played it. I love Don't Nod. But because they get released on the same day as Gunpoint, it was like, we will crush you! Yeah, it's such a meaningless thing, because this is, Next Fest literally doesn't exist yet. Like, you can't look at this page if you want to. Not only is it obscure to be number 1 on this particular page right now, but you literally can't access it unless you're a press or a developer. So we have a meaningless top spot right now. It's going to fade. There's no particular reason we would get any, this is trending. The reason we're able to compete on it is it's not total wish lists. It's this surge that we have. The surge is not going to last for there's no particular press speeds between now and Sunday. Sunday's the PC Gaming Show, will be in that. That will be a big spike for us, but of course a bunch of other games are also going to be in that, and any of those will have a big spike. There'll be other Summer Games Fest stuff too, that will also give people big boosts. I'm optimistic about PC Gaming Show in particular, because PC gaming focus. Next Fest is a PC gaming show, PC gaming festival. And then also it's the last thing in the Summer Games Fest, so hopefully we'll be like, and then the Next Fest officially starts the day after, so you want to be as late as possible in the Summer Games Fest. And that's, we took what we were offered, so it wasn't a strategic thing. It wasn't a strategic thing on our part in that way, but that seems like it could work out well. I don't expect us to be number 1 when Next Fest launches, but it is nice just to have, in some meaningless little sense, to have the top spot right now and crush those beautiful, lovely, tiny games.